Hey creatives, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing another mid-year bullet journal setup, and if you're following my channel for a bit you might be thinking, wait, didn't we just do that in the last video? You're right, I am redoing my bullet journal, and that has a particular reason, because the notebook I got myself falls apart. I have been in this notebook for just a couple of days. I migrated my yearly pages and that stuff, and I realized, why aren't the pages falling out? And I attempted to fix it, but I realized that is happening in the whole notebook, and there are things that I can arrange myself with in the notebook, but that was something that I was just not willing to accept. And so I decided to get myself a new notebook. And if you've watched my mid-year setup, then you know that I wanted to switch into an A6, really small notebook. And I decided that I will not try that again. I think my boyfriend and also my mom already said that's gonna be too small, and I was like, no, it will work. But just by the few days that I've spent in the notebook, maybe it was about a week or something, I realized that that was just not enough writing space for me. And yeah, so I went back and forth between wanting to try out something new. I wanted maybe to go for the B6 size, but then I just figured, why change things that work? I always had great times in A5 notebooks, and so I decided to go back to that. And I also decided to go back to like an old friend. I think a lot of people start out with the typical Leuchtturm bullet journal, and I somehow felt the need to really get back to basics and to not focus so much anymore on creating amazing, beautiful art in my bullet journal, because this is, I think, one reason why I stopped using and enjoying my bullet journal practice in the first half of the year, because I was so focused on performing for YouTube and coming up with unique, cool ideas that I lost the focus on why I'm bullet journaling. And I want to go back to that, and I feel a Leuchtturm journal has a specific feeling that makes me just want to write into it and use it. And that's why I went back to a simple Leuchtturm notebook with the thin 80 GSM paper, and I can say that I'm really glad I did that. I'm really enjoying this notebook so far, and I hope that even though a lot of the pages that we're setting up in this video are the same as in the last mid-year journal, that it can still inspire you. This one is way more minimalist and way less effort than anything else that you might have seen on my channel so far, and so I hope that maybe that is interesting and inspiring as well. And yeah, I think I've already talked enough. Let's just jump into my notebook and get the setup done again, so that I can finally use my bullet journal, which I'm already doing, but you know what I mean. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this video, and yeah, let's go! So before we start with the second time we set up my bullet journal for mid-year, let's have a look at my notebook chaos. Here you can see how I filled the A6 notebook and how the pages are falling out, as well as having a little glimpse of the plan I made for my new notebook. And as I said, I got myself the Leuchtturm 1917 typical A5 dot grid journal with 80 GSM pages. So really back to basics, back to the beginning. I think a lot of people started out with this bullet journal, and I have to say that it really got me kind of feeling nostalgic and like coming home. I think that's really nerdy to say that about a notebook, but that's just how I feel. And I also decided to get it in this deep red, purplish color that matches the one that I had before, which is kind of nice. I never had fitting notebooks for a year. And so yeah, I had a bit of a chaos going on, but we are starting out with my grid spacing guide. Nothing new here. That has been kind of the same in the last video as well I made for the mid-year. But I have to say I made it way more complicated in this notebook than it would have to be. Because I cut out a piece of paper from a very old Leuchtturm journal that was from 2018 or something. And then I realized that the page size changed a little bit. It is 1 dot grid less. And then I had to change things up again, and yeah, I could have just ripped out a page from the back of this journal, but I really wanted to make it as complicated as possible. So I had 2 stripes of paper, one for the side and one for the top, if that makes sense. I mean, you see what I'm doing here. But if you want to keep it more simple, just cut out a piece of paper from the back of your notebook and tape it in on the inside cover. That's easier than what I did. And yes, I had to calculate the spacing because I do suck at math so badly, but in the end it all worked out, and it is still very practical. I use it all the time, and that is just what is working very well for me. I thought I'd leave as much footage in the video as possible to give you an insight of how the process really was for me, because I did not really sketch out anything beforehand. I just went straight into my notebook, which made me make a few mistakes, but that's okay with me. I'm fine with a not perfect journal, and I hope that with this I can show that you don't have to create the beautiful spreads that other people create on the internet. And yeah, here you can see me calculating the spacing, which I always realize afterwards is not really necessary, because once you calculate like halves and thirds, you can really easily calculate fourths and whatever, so on. But yeah, calculating and numbers are definitely not my so-called strong suit or whatever. I guess that's okay. It's a bit embarrassing, but whatever. I try to be as honest as possible here. So yeah, after this very unnecessarily complicated grid spacing is done, we're moving on to the key. And the key, if you're new to bullet journaling, is for is basically kind of the symbols you use to organize your notebook. And there are you can create it however you want. I would highly recommend checking out the original bullet journal key because it's really useful, and I kind of went back to that, as well as adding a bunch of other stuff. In the last mid-year setup, which is 2 weeks ago, I already said that I was highly inspired by Rachel Stevens, and I took a deep dive into her Patreon and her system and how she organizes her bullet journal, and she uses like life areas, she calls life domains, and also plans a lot by the seasons. And I was so fascinated by that. I read so much about it and thought that would be quite helpful maybe for my life to add some visual differences to my different tasks and stuff. And this is something I'm gonna try out. If you want to know more about that, I link her channel in the description, and as I said, I can highly recommend her Patreon. She's got some very cool content for that. And next to that, I just really simply wrote 2023 part 2 and my motto of the year, believe in yourself, on the front page, as well as my name. And I added my email address afterwards, which is crazy because I never did that before, but I thought, why not? Back to basics, you know? Then after the index, I glued this wheel of the year, which is also completely inspired by Rachel Stephen. I kind of made her wheel for myself and just glued that in so that I have an overview over the different seasons. And moving on, this is so fast, I'm sorry. We are going to my future log, and for that I printed out some mini calendars on my, what is it called? I think thermal printer. I recently bought that for myself. It is always annoying to get the back paper of the sticker off the paper. It always takes some time, but yeah, I thought I'd save myself some time writing out every calendar, and that just looks a bit more cohesive. And if you're wondering, the font I used on these stickers I made myself, and you can do that pretty easily. There's a free program where you can print out some pre-made template, then scan it or take a photo of it, and you can create your own handwritten font out of that. And that is what I did. I also use this for my thumbnails now, and I really like how that turned out. It just looks like handwritten but more cohesive somehow. And as simple as that, that is my future log. Snacking some cookies in between the pages, we are moving on with my goals page, and there are not so many changes I made to that, as it is still in the sort of mind map. However, I did not part it into personal and work anymore. I just wrote 2023 on the left page and my long-term and maybe someday goals on the right. And then I plan to use the life area symbols that I set for myself to organize those goals. And talking of the life area symbols, this is what this page is for. This is a new addition to my bullet journal, and it is kind of a to-do page where I can write down things that I want to do in the different areas of my life, which are basically creative, financial, home, body, soul, and social life. I just found fancy German names for that. And whenever I would feel like, I would like to organize my kitchen pantry or clean the fridge or whatever, I could write that in the dedicated column there. Next up is a very simple layout for my health, and I've had that in the A6 setup as well as in the 2023 setup, and I also did that in a previous bullet journal in 2022, I think. It is just a place to track my health, mental and physical, and to write down what I'm having, what symptoms are, what I did about that, and to just track some things like whatever it could be. It can be tooth pain or belly aches or mental things. It's very handy if you go to the doctor and can say, this happened that day, what is it? But I've also talked about that in videos before, as well as about the next spread, which is my cleaning spread. That is exactly the same layout I've used in the A6 journal, just that I have more space again, which is good because I ran out of columns and had to cut down on them in the A6 journal. And next to that is my financial overview. Nothing has changed there as well. It is just practical for me to have a bit of an overview of what money do I have, what do I have to pay, what is coming up unregularly, and not really tracking my finances because I really suck at that. But to have a page that I can go to and see, next month I have to pay this app for my cycle tracking or whatever, is useful for me. After that, we have another spread that I already did, which is wish lists, gift ideas, date nights, and travel ideas. And all of that is very self-explanatory as well as very simple. And that's it so far for my mid-year setup. I forgot to include the YouTube page, and I decided to exclude the monthly memory page because right now we are setting up my summer spread. I already did that in the A6 notebook, which was fun, but filling the page out was a bit of a struggle because it was so tiny. And I also realized that that I put the wrong months for summer. Like I did the quarter months, which would be July to September. But if you look at the season, summer is from June to August. And this is what I wanted to actually make the spread for, since I'm trying to get a bit more into seasonal planning, because I find that quite fascinating and a good idea. Looking at the spread that I set up in the A6 journal, I realized it might have not been the most functional way, and so I decided that on the right page, the left column, which is next to the months, I would want to do a little reflection on the month, and so the monthly memory page felt a bit unnecessary to include in my mid-year setup. What you see me using here is a little booklet that I made with the falling out pages from my A6 notebook, and in this I wrote down the spiritual meaning of each season and what that, how that might affect me, what time is great for doing specific things, and I transferred a little bit of that to the summer page, as well as my spirit animal card that I drew a couple weeks ago when I filled out the spread in my A6 journal. And I always find that kind of fascinating to see what you can draw as a tarot card or whatever, and how that can have meaning in your actual life. Even though I wouldn't say that I'm too spiritual or something, but I'm fascinated by stuff like that. And it's a fun thing to do. Not that I 100% believe in everything or something like that, but it's fun and you can do things that are fun. So far for that, and after that we're jumping into the new monthly setup, which is July again. But this time I really changed up things. I'm really stepping out of my comfort zone and trying something that I haven't tried in ages. And that is a horizontal calendar, is that right? I think horizontal. So basically how the bullet journal method suggests you to make a calendar with like one line a day. And this is what is happening here on the left page. I really stripped back all kinds of decorations, or most kinds of decorations, and focused just on the layout and the functionality here. I used a bit of an accent color, yellow again, and added July, midsummer to the top of the page. I also added one column to put in my guest menstrual cycle, and then one column to set a focus of the day on which life area I want to spend time on working that day. I'm not sure if that will work for me, but we'll see. And as you also can see, I'm cutting 2 Dutch doors on the next 2 pages. These will function as my usual daily trackers and what I usually set up on several full pages. But first I wanted to add a little picture to add a little bit of interest, and I was going back and forth between a couple of options that I had and decided on this little photo of some grasses and sunlight, since this was just pretty fitting for me. So we're doing that, and under that I have some space for goals and tasks. Not sure if the task list will be long enough for me, but I will figure that out. In the middle part of the Dutch door, I will create my workout tracker, which is by now pretty must have in my bullet journal setups or my monthly setups. And the practical thing here, I think, is that I don't have to rewrite all the numbers every single time. I just use the line for when 1 week is over, and then I can see on the left or right page on what day I'm at. And that works as well for the daily review section that is on the last Dutch door spread. And once that is all done, I create my habit and mood tracker. As you can also see, I already planned that out in advance in this old notebook that I have. And it's the same tracker that I use in mostly every month, which has a graph for mood and energy and stress, in this case on the right side or at the top, and then a section for my habits on the left side or the bottom. And so with the Dutch door, I can see my mood and stuff basically on every page, which I find quite good to kind of see where I'm in my personal cycle and to interpret it to see how much energy I might have in the week for coming up, for example, if my period is coming along, stuff like that. And yeah, right now we're just setting up my habit tracker here, which is basically just a tool for me to observe myself. It's not so much about creating habits or something. The only thing I try to do every day is like flossing, and the rest is seeing, did I have a headache? Was I outside? Did I move? Was I reading? Stuff like that, but it doesn't go with pressure that I should be doing these things every single day. Then I just added one sticker on the habit tracker page and a washi tape, and that's all there's. That's my bullet journal setup again. I hope that this was inspiring, that it was a bit more minimalistic and a bit more easy to understand and to maybe include into your own bullet journal if you're starting out or if you want to restart your practice. I can highly suggest going back to basics, keeping it more simple. And so yeah, if you like what I'm doing, make sure to subscribe to my channel or like this video, and I hope that I see you in my next one. Bye!